Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining this call. This is a presentation by Noodle Partners on paying attention to usability in Sakai. It'll be by John Katzman and Mitch Golden. And I'll give a brief introduction, and if Mitch and John would like to kind of elaborate on their on their background, they're welcome to in their presentation. John is the CEO of Noodle Partners and a serial entrepreneur, founder of 2U and the Princeton Review, and Mitch is CTO of Noodle Partners, has a PhD in physics, a former professor, a longstanding internet technologist, and they have been working with Pepperdine University and coming up with some innovative new ideas that they'd like to share with the community. And so the way that we're going to that Mitch and I thought might be good for taking questions is feel free to type in the chat if you have a question, and then either you're welcome to use your audio if you're logged in with a microphone and just say what your question is. So I'll interrupt Mitch and let him know that there's a question waiting, or I'll read your question for you. I think that's how we'll try working out questions. So feel free to ask them as the presentation's going along. That sound good, Mitch and John?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. All right, super. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm very honored to be allowed to present this stuff, and we've been very happy to be working with the Sakai community. I first of all want to apologize. I tried to get the conference room. Our office is located on the Chelsea Piers, and for those of you who know New York, there's a golf shooting range right here, and there's a big machine that moves the golf balls around, and right now is the time they've chosen to vacuum up all the golf balls. So the noise you hear behind me is golf balls banging against the giant metal duct. So I apologize for that. John, do you say anything by way of introduction of yourself you've been doing?
Sure. When I founded my last company, 2U, there were really any LMSs that met my needs and my school's needs for distance learning in higher ed. And specifically, what concerned me was the need to have a fiercely social experience. One thing just to flank a classroom experience, be a place to put assignments or resources once or another. It's another thing to actually meet the campus. So I ended up building, starting with Moodle, own LMS. When I started Noodle Partners, we looked around and realized that our partner school, that our first partner, Pepperdine, was using Sakai, and that deeply buried in Sakai were the kind of tools that I needed. The problem is nobody used them because they were impossible to find, and because the user interface in general discouraged you from any kind of social interaction.
So I'm going to interrupt just a second here, John. It's a little hard to hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, you're even breaking up a little bit. And I tried to mute myself, but when I clicked the little Neil, when I clicked the button up left, I fell off completely.
Oh, there's a microphone button at the top of the very top bar that you should be able to click to mute yourself.
Yeah, and when I did it, I lost all audio. Not the microphone.
Oh, weird. I don't know.
What goes on with that? Maybe this works. Am I muted?
No, you're not muted.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I don't know. Oh, maybe I can do this. Anyway, John can try raising the voice.
I think my community is fine. you hear me now?
Yes, a bit better.
What I was trying to say is that the bar for a learning management system in an online collegiate experience is set significantly higher in terms of functionality and some other functionalities. And when we looked at Sakai, we thought, we could make this work. And this presentation is about the road we see to making Sakai work for this particular use, for an online program in higher ed. But I think the implication of some of these changes is actually very positive for any number of other uses for Sakai as well. Should we jump in, Mitch?
Surely. Okay, very good. All right, well, so let me just start by saying that I have a long history with open source software, and I know that it's much more important to do than to talk. And so I wanted to show you, first of all, what we're building, and just dive right into that, and then go back and talk about some of our ideas behind the things that we're building. And what I'm going to demonstrate is actually about to be used by the for a degree at the Bachelor of Science in Management for Pepperdine University's Graziano Dio School of Business and Management. And so first of all, I want to thank the appropriate parties who helped us with this. Pepperdine, of course, being first and foremost for letting us do this and take the initiative. Adrian Fish and Steve Swinsberg, who possibly many of you know, who were the developers who assisted us. eSync Training, I'm going to show you something they did for us. And Longsight has agreed to host this, even though it's to some extent new technologies, although of course mostly it's based on Sakai 11. So let me begin by showing you our vision for where we're going to be pretty soon. Not all of it is going to be there for our August launch. So what I'll be demoing is what's going to be there for our August launch. But we are going to try to keep pushing even throughout the coming semester to add the other things that I'm going to be talking about. So, all right. So as John said, the first most important thing about an online program versus an in-person program is that this really is your experience of your degree. It's not some little add-on like your email client to a fundamentally in-person experience. Now this is really, your master's degree experience, or here your BSM experience. So it's important, we felt, to put the social aspect first. So your home screen when you log in is redesigned. It's sort of a bit like the dashboard concept, but it's more social. So we are not going to be deploying the Sakai dashboard. Instead, we'll be using this. It's a little hard to see. I'll show you it in detail. We call this page the quad, and this is your new home screen. And on the left, you will see a Facebook-style news feed or wall, right? And so this is what you're doing. You're talking here to your connections. Your connections being shown here on the lower left. Oh, sorry, on the lower right. Your other left, Mitch. So these are the people I've connected with in here, and here's our discussions back and forth. And it works in exactly the way that Facebook works. So you don't have to learn anything, and I'll go into that more later. I see Dave Evelyn has asked a question. They're the Sakai connections. I'll get to how you connect to other students in the course, how you would discourse with them later. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to note, everything we're doing is trying to get rid of the need to use Yammer, or the need to use other functionalities that professors are using as sort of shims, which we think create a tremendous amount of confusion. So where possible, we are just leveraging sources that already are actually sitting there. We're just using functionality and clarifying UI.
Louisa Lee, I guess, asked probably in the profile tool correct. Though the profile tool, to be honest, and I can say this because the guy who wrote it agrees with me, definitely needs some serious loving. It's a pretty messy experience. And in fact, you don't have to use it. You don't have to use it to connect, as I'll show you as I go through. So that's our first big change. You log into that. Secondly, it's time to sort of come up to modern standards for things, and we built a tool that presents the things you need to know in, I would call it Facebook style, but it's far from unique to Facebook at this point. These kind of alerts, we call them the Bullhorns, because this icon under here is a bullhorn. We have two, one for your academic events and one for your social events. So people friending you or so on. Those would come in here, and the others would come in here. So next is this is one we're working on. We haven't actually got to yet. We would like to eliminate the redundant navigation that has kind of developed in Sakai 11, and you're kind of halfway to what we think is right, which is there's still a left nav over here in your workspace. Redundantly, the stuff that's under your image here. Is this toolbar showing to everybody? I have a toolbar here. Is that just for me as a presenter, or is it for everybody? Neil?
Yeah, I think by the toolbar you mean the Pepperdine.
No,
toolbar, yeah,
I mean, in the window, central window as presenter, there's a toolbar that has a hand, a pan and zoom, a pencil, and all this stuff.
No, we don't have that. That's just for you. It's presenter.
Good. All right. I don't want to get rid of it, but okay. Anyway, so off to the right, you have those things that by now are standard under your name that appears off, your login name that appears conventionally off to the far right. We're very close. Sakai's gotten kind of close to that. I haven't dispensed with those same things on the left. So we would like to dispense with them on the left in the workspace and have a non-redundant navigation, because redundant navigation just adds confusion to the usability, right? And these things that are under here are available no matter where you are, as they should be. But not all of the things that are on the navigation here today in Sakai 11 under here, and so you can't do some of those things from wherever you happen to be in Sakai. And this one.
There's a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will this replace the Who is Online feature? No. The Who is Online feature is not mock-up, but it's still there. It's the same chat. We haven't touched the chat. I want to make sure that everyone understands that actually everything we're doing is an addition. There's nothing actually that we've removed. So if you deployed our code onto your Sakai, you could run it exactly like naked Sakai 11. What I'm about to say, we might break that promise that I just things, but no, we're not really looking to take stuff out because that I think requires discussion in the community. So adding things is always much less controversial. This one I want to say this. Sorry, go ahead.
The point is to eliminate redundancy, and our expectations that in the we control will remove again some of the UI that we is unnecessary to use the connections that you see in the there. You will be able, it's on our roadmap, to, if someone is online right now, chat with them immediately or contact them in directly from that icon.
Let me say, what is also true is we don't have enough of these here to show, but they are ordered so that the people who are online right now come up first. Now, that's not what you use to chat with them, because you would use that little chat thingy that's at the bottom. Some universities, including Pepperdine at the moment, have turned off that functionality. There's no, as I said, there's no removal of functionality. There are some wonky things about that I want to talk to. I think Adrian was the guy who wrote the guy who wrote it. Adrian might be able to fix. So, but that's for another time. I haven't really planned that out. We're just sort of assuming that it's good enough for the moment. But yes, especially if you're an online person, you need to have that. You need to know who's online if you're never going to see them in person. Am I breaking up too, or it's John?
It just seems to mostly be John.
Okay. John, are you able to see that chat window? John, you still there? Maybe he's dialing in. All right, I'm going to continue. Hopefully, John comes back.
And you suggest you muted myself, and I'm dialing in.
Okay, good. So this one's one of John's big pet peeves, and I've come to agree with him. There's the concept of a site in Sakai, which plays a big role. And I think that the way I put it is, a site is an abstract base class that we're saddling the users with, right? The users don't know from sites. They know about courses and groups. And, a course is something you do with the faculty and get probably assigned a grade in. A group is some other thing, probably more social in nature. And especially if you're online, you would, if you're an online student, a lot of your socializing might occur in those groups. And John, who is of course momentarily unavailable, he will tell you that at 2U, this played a major role in their online programs, these sorts of groups. And there's no reason, just because they work the same way, to use the same words for them or to put them under the same place in the navigation. And
heard now?
Yes, very good.
Oh, good. The programs we launched had hundreds of groups. Incredibly well-used functionality, and I think it totally changed the dynamic of the LMS. So this is not a small thing, even though it's not a huge programming effort.
So we haven't done that, partly because I wasn't sure how deep it would be, and partly because I wanted to discuss it with maybe some more usability folks before we did it. But definitely. So Adam just asked, does a group map to a site? Like I said, the site is a class now for courses and groups. There are two kinds of sites. They are the only difference between the two is sort of, what kinds of tools are typically used in them. And from a programmer's point of view, they have nothing different. They're just sort of like, oh, one uses one template, one uses the other. John, your audio was much better, at least to me. So from what I understand, historically there was another kind of site, I think called a portfolio. That's gone. So now there are really only two. So let's just navigationally separate them. So that should be that. All right. So lastly, I want to point out that we want to say as a general thing, and I'll have a lot more to say about this later, we're going to put links where they belong so that when you need to have something, it's at your fingertips, not necessarily something you have to hunt for. So let me see if I can start showing my screen and actually demoing. And I believe I pressed this button to show my screen, full screen. Can everybody see my screen now?
Not yet.
Yes? No?
Not yet, no.
Am I supposed to press something further?
Did you have to get the run button?
I didn't get it. I haven't gotten it.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, yes. Here, I got the allow button.
You got to do the allow, then the run, yeah.
Okay, sorry, allow. Sorry, every Firefox puts that in a not so easy place.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
now I click run button. There we are. And now
there we go. Yep, we can see you.
This weird grid. And hide this. I don't know why that's there. Okay, so welcome to Sakai 11E, as we call it. This is Jody Rothstein's home screen. Jody works with me and John. And you can see here are the connections. She's connected to Adrian Fish and to me. Those of you who know Adrian Fish knows that's not what he looks like, nor is this me, but that is Jody. And so here's our wall, and if she types something, it appears here. She can post, and there it is. She can reply, and I will say, whoops. Let me say one other thing. We decided building this, we call it the Commons. We decided in building the Commons tool that it should be threaded in the Facebook style. What does that mean? Facebook threading is that the posts are threaded in reverse chronological order. So that is to say, most recent at the top. But within the posts, the replies are threaded in chronological order. So that if there's another reply to this, it goes below her initial reply. And of course, this would work for other people. It is not yet, unfortunately, real-time tool that is, the way Facebook is, where people are, if you're sitting on the page, you would have to reload the page to see people's replies. That's something I'd like to do, but it's a significant effort.
We did have a question come in, by the way. It looks like John answered it in the chat. It was a question about groups. Where did that go? Could a group be joined to a course site? And then John answered there's existing functionality for groups with courses, but we're trying to encourage students to create groups outside of formal classes.
Right. Sakai has And I will say, to be honest, I find this a little bit confusing. Sakai has a concept of a group within a course, and part of the confusion is the terminology is the same, so it might actually be worth contemplating the names of these things to some extent. But the other thing that is that this, I will say, all the things you're seeing here were done essentially between between March and June. So there's a long road ahead that we can do. So making this real time or revisiting the naming and the organization of some of this stuff is stuff that we're definitely interested in doing over time. So one other thing I wanted to show is that we have the other Facebook style thing here where if you want to paste a link in, here's an interesting article, and you paste a link in, it does the Facebook style, grabbing the stuff from the thumbnail image and posting it in the thread. This works very nicely. It does, however, depend on the source using the conventional thing to determine what the thumbnail is. So if it can't find one, then it works fine, but you just don't get a thumbnail. But nowadays, most websites obey that stuff, and so this would be a useful thing for somebody in the course.
Charles' question.
I'm sorry.
Charles' question, by the way, on groups versus sites. They really are right now pretty separate functionalities that don't make sense as separate objects. And by saying that there are courses you're in, and that course has a conversation going, and it has the functionality that Mitch is describing, and then B, there are informal groups of one sort or another, and we're simply giving each group its own site, and just calling the whole thing, the functionality that comes with being a site, the functionality that comes with being a group, putting it together and calling it a group.
Have a quad-like homepage as well, right? It would have a commons to the left. It would have I can show you this. Let me move off to this. So here, if I go to Mercury site, which is actually not a course, but it's configured like a course. Here, actually, it's not. So let me actually not show it. Let me show Sakai, which is configured like a course. Here's a course, and the only it also has its own commons. It's a different commons. It's a commons for talking about the course. It has here, instead of connections, it has site members. Here, this is a rather top-heavy course. It has 5 instructors and 2 students. And it has a calendar, but the calendar here, unlike Jody's personal calendar, only shows only the events that are relevant to the course, as I'm about to show. So a group would look just like this too, right? But it wouldn't have a syllabus or a grade book or tests and quizzes, right? Those things it would not have. So that's essentially the main difference, as I see it in Sakai, between what you have called a group and what you have called a course, is that it's just a course without the machinery of a course. And it would just, for site members, there wouldn't be, it would maybe instructors or something, right? Because there's no division there. Everyone is, or if there's a leader, he would show up as the instructor and the others would show up as a student. Does that answer the question?
Fine.
Okay, cool. So let me also say that I'm not going to bother showing it, but on the assignments page, maybe I have one. If you go to the assignments page, you can see if it was done. There should be a Commons under there. So the instructor can Commons under assignment for talking about the assignment. This is kind of like a comments tool that already exists in the tests and quizzes section. We would like to put a Commons in the tests and quizzes section too, but that turned out to be a bit more of an issue, and since the Commons tool has some functionalities that people wanted that are not present in the Commons, we decided not to. So that's something people can do. Let me say that the Commons tool does not have a rubric or any grading anything at the moment. When I was showing it to some folks at the Apereo conference in May, people were saying that that would be interesting stuff to add. I agree. If people want to help us with it and add that kind of functionality, it's already in the Sakai contrib repo, and so people can take a look at it. There.
I should note that I hear a bunch of comments around multiple LMSs and how this social functionality should function. The problem with a lot of social functionality that doesn't happen where the assignments are, where the actual work is being done, is no one ever goes there. If you have to click around to find the place you can discuss something, you just don't bother. So by integrating the two, what we're trying to say is, all right, there's an assignment and people have questions about it. Right on the assignment, that's where the discussion should happen. That the first, as soon as you go into a course, in the same way that if you were sitting down at a lecture and the professor hadn't started yet, and you're just talking, and the class is just talking about anything that's going on, about Melania Trump, they're all there, that conversation just flows. So the paradigm we're trying to drive towards is discussion as the central element of the LMS.
Right. And for that reason, I think that people should think carefully about the forum tool, how it currently works, because it's using the very old school kind of thing. When I mentioned we use the Facebook style threading, it's not like a old school news group. Some websites still do use that kind of threading. Oldest at the top, and multiple indentations far out as it reply. It sounds a good idea. Technical people have a tendency to kind of like it, but I think the average user would finds it a bit intimidating, and particularly as the replies get very deep, it can be unwieldy, and you can't really tell who said the most recent thing on the subject because it could be buried in the middle somewhere. So we opted for the Facebook style. In fact, we're a little more brutal even than Facebook because we don't even double thread. Facebook will have a post and then the replies, and then the replies can have replies, but not further. We don't even have that. So you make a post to the public. Jody here is in the professor role, so she can actually edit and delete other people's stuff. It's a permission who gets to do what with respect to that. But it's something to think about. I think that the forum tool is probably being used for some very important things, so I'm not exactly sure how how to sort of migrate it, but I am afraid of thinking about its usability for people who are frankly spend most of their time working in a Facebook-style threading. So that's. Are there any other questions about the? Any other questions about the Commons? Okay. Hearing none.
It looks like Adam is saying he asked one. What's your question, Adam?
You can speak.
Yeah, sorry, I was just asking, because we use the lessons tool a lot at Oxford, and in the same way as you're going to have a Commons in the assignments tool, we'd like to, I was wondering whether you could have one in the lessons tool,
Right.
and then if you could, then could you have one like for each lesson?
Yes.
So you have a lessons component, which is the Commons. You look it on the page.
Yeah, so when I say yes, I mean yes, we want to. The thing is, the lessons tool has this comments thing,
Yes,
which is sort of like, and again, it's sort of one of the things I think that Sakai would be well served to do is, I mean, I'm committing the sin that I am. There's a comments tool and there's a forum tool, and if you believe that forum tool is the right thing, then it should be what's in the it should be the thing that's in the lessons tool. But we believe in the long run that the Commons is the right tool, so we're going to put it there, and then we wouldn't have, two different tools for the students to have to deal with.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that the forum is a bit unwieldy for the lessons tool.
Right.
Have like a threaded discussion displayed on the page where you can post back, and that's what it wants.
And my view is that the forums tool is probably, I haven't talked with it, so people I may be speaking out of turn, but I believe the forums tool is a bit unwieldy, period, because of the complicated threading, and I found it a little, it's off to the side, it's its own thing, it's not where it wants to be, and it has this whole complicated notion of discussions and then posts within discussions and replies to that. It all just seemed a little bit much. So I would defer to those who have experience, but I felt that the Commons is a closer thing to, I think, the way students today would rather use it. And, I, by the way, came to this conclusion after John, invade me substantially on this point. So, it should be simple, keep it simple, stupid. And I think the forums tool is the sort of thing that in 15 years ago, the people on the web were used to using, and now that the usability bar is raised by Facebook and, Google Plus and these guys. They do it in a less convoluted way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
One other thing I wanted to mention, just for those technical folks that are on here, this page is built out of 3 widgets. The Commons is a widget, this calendar is a widget, and the Connections is a widget. We had to actually write something to inline these things all into one page, because the one thing that was left as an iframe within Sakai 11 was this 2-column layout. And so Steve Swinsberg made it inline, and there are some substantial issues that need to be addressed that have gotten discussed on the dev list regarding JavaScript and how it's handled and all this stuff. But we've gotten it to work, at least for now, with these tools, but it's probably something that more discussion needs to be done on. And I would also say that here in the course site, there's another tool, that trivial tool here called the Site Information Widget, which I think the title should be hidden. It's not right now. that just, this is the information from the site info. And we've been discussing with Brian and Kyle at NYU about maybe doing something more with this than just showing something. The idea is just to show you where you are because it's not necessarily so obvious. Just to continue, if I go back to Jody's home page, the calendar here showed all of her things that she has to do. She has a quiz that she somehow here in my workspace. That's a weird thing. I don't know what that's about. That's probably old data in my demo. But I would, you can click and show you what you have to do. I wanted to just show you one important thing. Here in the Sakai demo site, that's the course, it shows the site here that is generating the event. So this site, this event here is coming from Sakai demo. If I click this, it will take me to their home screen. But that's actually not something they probably very much would want to do. Probably what they want to do is say, oh, I'm sitting here on this is my work site, so-called. Let's go here to the Adobe Connect meeting that's at 12:30, and you click, and I really hope this doesn't break. So we'll see is, I'm actually joining Adobe Connect here, and I better stop before it blows up my big blue button connection. So I'm stopping, but I hope you all saw that. That's what I meant by putting the link where they belong, right? You don't want to have to go to click 9 times to get to where it is you actually want to be. And I just want somebody here, I forgot to prepare for this, I don't know. If you have an assignment, let me see if I have this. And if I don't, I will invite to try it. Try going to this schedule thing and seeing what you have to do on the schedule tool. It's not hidden. Let me see if it's not hidden on the Mercury site. It probably is not.
Mitch, will you scroll quickly? It takes a while for us to catch up to you.
Okay, sorry about that. Calendar. Here's the calendar tool. Okay, so if I can find a quiz, something that I need to do here. I should have been ready for this. It occurred to me. Okay. Here's something that's due. Okay, I am on the week now of June 30th. Can people see a due commons test
Yes.
event? Okay. So what do I get if I click this? Does it take me to the commons test? No, it takes me to an event. And then I have to click here to get to the assignment. Does that take me to where I want to be? Not really. And if you work it out, and like I said, I didn't really set this up for this demo. I apologize. If you try it, there are instances where it will take literally 5 clicks to go from something on a calendar to the actual event or thing you're being quiz or whatever that you're actually asked to turn in. And that's, so it works. I mean, it all makes sense if you don't actually want to use it. But as a thing to use every day, I think people would find it very annoying. So we were kind of rabid about trying to get these links where they belong. And Adobe Connect, through eSync training, we've had them build this thing that actually allows it to show up either here in our calendar widget, or if you were to use this calendar widget, it will still show up, but it's still an extra click because that's the way the calendar works. But at least you get this join button here, so that you don't have to go over to the left nav to find, navigate through some list of sessions and find the one that you're being asked to join. So that's that. Last thing I want to know was these bullhorns that we were talking about. These show, as I said, academic events, and they're independent of where you are. They are global. So it doesn't matter what site you are in, your friends doing things with you, sending you messages and so on. Those will show up here, and every time you change screens, they reloaded, and they actually ping in real time about, I think, once a minute, so that these bullhorns would show people sending so on. They should be real time, link you to the actual message. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I saw that there's a clear all there, which is nice because it lets you kind of manage all those. But
Right.
is there a history you can go back to? So you've cleared them all out, so you've kept up to date, but then you recognize that there's some events you want to go and recheck for some reason.
So that's not there now. Interesting thought. Generally, these events are all somewhere else. So this thing here is mostly just to notify you that there's something that happened. I suppose we could do that. I would have to think about how to do it. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess Adrian's I guess the question is whether that having it this way and keeping it simple is the better way to do it, or if there are valid use cases for wanting to see your history. So it just popped in my mind. I don't know.
It is a great question. John may have an opinion on that. I can't say that I've thought about it enough.
Only that how you display it on the top, where you just want to quickly see, when you click on the icon, new things that are coming up. How you display it on the screen when you go to see all your messages, possibly an archive feature, but simple is generally more useful.
I mean, the idea here is, if your professor created a new assignment, once you clear it here, which, by the way, at least now you have to do manually, right? You have to clear it. Notice that I followed it, and it didn't go away. I have to make it go away. Here's the assignment, right? And since I'm a professor, I see the professor view of the assignment. This is this assignment that was created. If you clear the notification, it doesn't clear the assignment. You know that you have it, and probably it would have a due date on your calendar too that stays there. So I'm not sure. We would have to look carefully at as you said, what the use cases are for something along those lines. And I just realized I forgot to mention one other thing, since you saw the friending feature. One of the things that you can do is friend people directly from, I don't know what's happening here. Oh, I apologize. There is some crazy bug in this profile page in Firefox where this stuff here hangs up for about 30 seconds, pegs my browser, only in Firefox. It doesn't do it in Safari or in Chrome. So I don't know what the problem is, but I don't know if you even got to see it. But the My Connections and My Pictures stuff in Firefox pegs, and the browser freezes up completely.
We've had some discussions in the community about whether we even need the My Pictures
Yeah,
option.
it's a good question. So here's Adrian Fish. If I click Adrian Fish here, it says remove. That's because I'm already friended with Adrian over here. If I were to click it, he would not be my friend anymore. And likewise, if there's somebody on my personal site, I would never see some posts from people who are not my friends, although I could see replies from people who are not my friends. If you always get the opportunity to friend people directly from the comments, that's partly to avoid sending people off to that screen that I don't like, but it's also because it's, usability-wise much easier. So that's there now too. And I think, of course, this kind of mirrors the kinds of things people are used to in other sites. So that is, am I forgetting to demo anything? I think.
We're almost out of time. We should go back to our deck and.
Right. Okay. I will get through. So let me talk about the the user experience thing.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Everything really is about using gestures that students already know, having a site that you don't have to learn that just makes sense. And we're assuming people use Instagram, use Facebook, use LinkedIn, and everything is about just having one way to do something and having it be the way you do it every place else on the internet.
Yeah. So that's. So I wanted to just quickly talk about the sort of radical implications of doing what John just described. So the main thing I would say coming at this as sort of a technical outsider, I don't know how many people here heard or were at the talks at the Apereo conference, but Michael Feldstein gave a sort of keynote on the last day, his law, which says organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. Sakai is busy doing that thing. The creation in Sakai is very tool-centric. Everything's a tool over on the left, and that's the way it's developed. And you would say, as we've sort of emphasized, you got lessons and forums and assignments and tests and quizzes all in separate boxes on the left, and that's because they're developed by separate people, and they plug in, they're sort of standalone boxes of code, and that's the easiest way to get them to the user. But that's not necessarily, in all cases, the way the user wants to use them. As we discussed, we want to put the forum tool, or in our case, the commons, right next to the stuff that you want to be talking about. And instead of having those three boxes separate, maybe there's a way to combine them into something that says quick, that would combine lessons and quizzes in a sort of serial way. It says after this lesson you take this quiz, rather than having them navigationally separate. And I would say we're sort of working on that. We haven't gone so deep on that because we didn't have time. So I called it openness and its discontents. Sakai is made in this Lego brick way, and it's designed that way as essentially as a conscious thing to facilitate the addition of tools. But the tools, if the tools being added, the openness facilitates the addition of tools. So, for example, hey, I could put async training over on the lab. But if the openness is built in such a way that prevents it makes the navigation into a tangle, then that's not actually where we want to be. We don't want to write monolithic tools. The tools have to actually think about what hooks they're going to present. So the calendar really has to present hooks to say, I am going to have deep links into the things that we need to have. Furthermore, the deep links need to work, and some of what Adrian and Steve needed to build were some of the tools don't allow deep linking. So you couldn't actually link directly to an assignment. You could only link to the assignment page. And forgive me if I'm misremembering which tools they had to build. Yeah, so you don't want to build LTI blocks as your LMS. And the good news is that L is not enough, right? You know, they're difficult to use by dint of the fact that they're not in the flow. And we talked about this. I think we should be paying more attention to the standard conventions now that, you know, they may not be right, but it's the way everyone does it now. And if you do something different, you're just going to confuse people. So don't do it different unless, you know, with all due respect to Apple, don't think different unless you have a reason to think different, right? So here's an example I showed. Here's our Sites tool. Now, admittedly, this is not something that the...
30 seconds.
Okay. The tabs here on the top function as buttons. And they shouldn't be buttons. Remove site is not an action. It's not a tab. It's an action. It's a button. So don't use a tab where you need to use a button. So anyway. So the good news is that now we're ready to do this. Sakai is ready to do this. Sakai can actually work this way. But the groundwork is there. The tools are ready. But now it's time to pay some attention and do those things. And we are investing in this. Our partner universities are going to help us fund this, and John may want to say more about that. And we're, in it to do it. So that's my last slide.
We believe we have 4 universities interested in each putting in $50,000 a year. We're going to put in another 50, and together, let contracts within the Sakai community towards a UI, towards continuous UI improvement. We really want to work both with developers on the one side and with any UI groups that exist on the other, to steer all of us towards a coherent vision that works with the other use models for Sakai, and we want to integrate our work into how other people are thinking about UI.
Yeah. So I wanted to say my email. I realized just now I was continuing to show my screen, so you were seeing all my slides small, but the slides are uploaded. My email Golden at noodle.com. I would love it if people want to participate. All this stuff is already, some of it's already in Sakai 11. All of it is already public. Anything anybody wants to help with, we invite any participation. And we very much thank you for listening and being such a welcoming community.
Thank you very much, Mitch and John. Really appreciate it. I can see there's a lot of interest and excitement and on the chat, and probably a lot of interest in furthering the conversation. So it's very, very exciting that you're doing this innovative work and wanting to engage the community with it.
Well, thank you all for...
Thanks all for listening.
Okay, we'll wrap up now, and I'll stop the recording, and more to come. Thanks a lot. Bye.